We all have insecurities. There's no doubt about it. Or maybe you are that exceptional person who is filled to the brim with extreme confidence and has no personal insecurities. If that is you, this episode is not going to be for you. But if you can relate more to having a few insecurities, or maybe even more than a few, and to know that that might affect you sometimes as a speaker and presenter and many of the things that you want to do professionally, then this episode is exactly for you. In this short episode, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the common insecurities that we have as professional speakers and coaches and communicators. And we're going to talk about the main reasons why they work against us and what we can do to help make our insecurities into our superpower. Welcome to Present Influence, the show that helps speakers, coaches, and communication professionals develop these skills to impact, influence, and inspire. My name is John Ball, keynote coach, professional speaker, and your guide on the journey to mastery level presentation skills. My mission is to provide professional communicators like you with everything you need to maximize your impact and present with influence. Follow the show on your favorite podcast app for weekly episodes and interviews with influence experts. And join me on LinkedIn for the Present Influence weekly newsletter. So we all have insecurities, and sometimes they get in the way of our ability to deliver. We end up talking ourselves out of going for opportunities and putting ourselves out there because our insecurities may be shining so brightly in our minds. Now, some of the most common insecurities that people have are about the way that they look. And certainly, I'm not immune to that myself. I don't think of myself as one of the beautiful people or anything like that. I just have a belief, at least, that my appearance is tolerable enough, or despite a bad hair day today, that my appearance is tolerable enough that it's not going to interfere with my talks and presentations to the point where people are just going to be staring at me because of how I look. But there are certainly things I don't like about my appearance that I worry that people are going to focus on. It's normal and natural to have those kinds of feelings. And that is the kind of thing that can make you even more scared to get up on a platform in front of people and put yourself out there. You may not like the way you sound, especially if you've recorded yourself, maybe for podcasts or maybe for video content or anything like that, and heard your voice back. If you are not fully familiar with how your voice sounds to other people when it's not coming from inside you, and it definitely sounds different, you may not like what you hear because it's not how you hear yourself. There is a bit of a dissonance inside of us that says, is that how I sound to other people? And we may not like it. But the reality is, that's how we've always sounded to other people in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not exactly, but more or less. Our voices sound a little more resonant inside our own heads when we're speaking. As I speak to you now, I can feel my voice resonating in my throat, somewhat in my chest, and in my head. And I know probably not going to sound quite as deep and resonant to you as it is to me listening to myself right now. So just know that it can take a long time to get over the sound of your own voice. And some people may never get over some of their insecurities about how they look or how they may come across to other people. Sometimes our insecurities are about things that aren't necessarily visible, but we worry that people might find out things about it. We might have some things in our history that we're not super proud of. And those are things that can hold us back from putting ourselves out there and being excellent speakers and presenters, taking our message out into the world. So what do we do? How do we get out of our own way in order to be able to get out there and deliver a message and fulfill whatever we feel is our mission and purpose as a professional speaker or communicator? But it really does come from focusing on the message and the people receiving the audience. At least I think this is the case, that I'm not doing this all for me. I get benefits from the work that I do. I feel fulfillment. I often get well paid, and I enjoy it as well to a greater degree. And so I have to start to forget about the things that I'm worried about and just know that maybe some of the audience will focus on some of those negative things. But for the most part, people are focused on the message and who you are. And who you are is not just how you look. As shallow as the world can appear to be sometimes, and often very superficially focused on looks, undoubtedly being physically attractive is a huge advantage to getting you further along your professional path. We tend to like people who look good, and we also attribute certain qualities based on how people look. So if we look at someone and think that they're not particularly attractive, we're also likely to associate potentially negative thoughts to them. If someone is overweight, we maybe have prejudgments about how they eat and maybe are not looking after themselves and their health. Never mind that their weight might have nothing to do with their diet or lack of exercise and might actually have other causes. But that doesn't help you in terms of, are people going to make those judgments? They probably will, but they're not going to spend that much time on them for the most part, unless they have insecurities, unless they have prejudices that are getting triggered by you in some way, shape, or form. And that makes it about them and not about you. And this really is the main thing with our insecurities, is like, most people are not really thinking that much about you. And think about it this way in life, this is how it usually works for most people when we make connections with others. We may have some initial first impressions, but those impressions do change as we get to know people more. And if we like those people, we naturally start to think of them as being more attractive because they are likable, because they're good people, because they have a message, or maybe they have good leadership qualities or other things that you see in them. These are the things that we start to look up to. It's a person's qualities that actually make them, in the long run, more or less attractive to other people. And I'm not talking so much about sexual attraction here, although I'm not saying that's completely irrelevant. I am really talking more about social attractiveness or professional attractiveness, or maybe appeal would be a better word in some ways. That somebody feels more appealing as someone you'd like to get to know or spend time with or hang out with, or feel respect for them, you admire them in some way, shape, or form. We do start to see people a little differently when we know more about them. And I think this is one of the ways that we can lean into our insecurities at least a little bit and be okay with them, maybe even acknowledge them sometimes with our audience. It can be okay to make a joke at your own expense, so long as it's not too self-deprecating. For example, there's a UK comedian, Jo Brand. She used to have this joke about she'd be standing behind a mic stand. She's a larger lady. And she would say, "Oh, let me just move from behind the mic stand so that you can see me." Great joke. Not super self-deprecating, but it does go as far as acknowledging the thing that probably most people first notice about her is that she's a plus-size lady. And there's absolutely no harm in it. What she does by doing that is owns it and just says, "Yeah, look, I see it, you see it, it's there. Let's just get that out of the way right now." So humor can be a great tool to lean into to help you with that. But again, don't go down the route of making yourself the complete butt of a joke. You want to be kind to yourself as well. So don't say anything about yourself that you would be super upset if someone else said it about you. That's probably not such a great idea. But if, for example, you have a high-pitched voice and that's what you're concerned about, it could be good to acknowledge that. And I think humor could be a great way to help you to do that as well. Whatever it is that you feel insecure about, maybe you do have a past where, maybe, just as an example, because I know someone who has this in their past, had a history of drug abuse and had been a drug addict and has been open and honest about that in some of their talks. It's not necessarily always relevant, but it does open up a level of vulnerability. Say, look, that's not where I am now. My life is better. I'm sober. I'm out of all of that. And it can actually add to your credibility and be more empowering. There may still be people in an audience who would hear that and be like, "I'm just going to discount everything this person says because I have no respect for anyone who's ever done drugs." But that would be a little bit crazy. And again, it says more about them than it does about you. So I do think that owning our insecurities, acknowledging them, and maybe even learning to love ourselves a little bit more as a whole person, flaws and all. Think about somebody in your life who you love. who you care about, are they completely perfect? I would say not, because nobody is. And so they have flaws, and you love them. And you love them with their flaws, not without them, not in spite of them, but you love them with their flaws. If they were perfect in every possible way, it might be hard to love them more because you wouldn't feel that you could really connect with them in the same way. So our flaws, our insecurities do allow a little vulnerability and a way in to improve our connection with other people. So we don't need to lay all of our dirty laundry out online for people and share every aspect of our life, our insecurities, all the things we absolutely hate about ourselves. But the ones that are particularly important and coming up for us, and maybe causing some fear for us or interfering with our ability to get up on stages, making us feel more nervous, those are perhaps the ones that we can lean into a little bit more, make them work to our advantage by owning them and sometimes acknowledging them so that we take the power out of them. We're not embarrassed by it. We're not worried about people laughing at it. We've accepted it. We know who we are and we've accepted it. And this puts us also into a growth mindset. So I think there's a lot we can do to reframe our insecurities for ourselves and perhaps for our audience as well, and make them into a point of connection, an entry point of vulnerability to deepen your connection with your audience. No, and again, you don't want to go too far with this. You're not trying to get sympathy from your audience. You are really just relating to them in a way that they're going to understand. And to be honest, sometimes the insecurity that you may have, people in your audience won't even have thought about. I'll share with you this. One client I was working with last year, she had a very strong Texan accent. And as a midlife lady of color, she was very worried about getting up on stages to the audiences that she wanted to go to and having this really strong Texas accent. And for me, I hadn't even thought about that whilst we'd been talking in our sessions. And I said, I actually love your accent. And I really think you need to own it rather than try and change it. If there was an issue of you're hard to understand because of it, then maybe there is some work to do there because being understood is going to be important as a professional speaker. However, if it's just that you're worried that people are going to think that you're a bit stupid because you have this strong accent that is often associated with people who aren't all that intelligent, which again is a horrible stereotype, that's not a great thing to be concerned about. You could own that and acknowledge it and maybe even joke about it in your presentation, and you take all the power out of it. In fact, your audience will love you more because of it. And they probably, for the most part, haven't even thought about it in the way that they don't share your feeling of insecurity, or that you should even feel insecure about that. I hope this is an interesting perspective for you on insecurities. If you are someone who has a mission and a purpose, a message to take out into the world, and you want to share it with other people, I really hope that you will take what we've talked about here to heart and find a way to start to reframe, move past these things that are potentially blocking you from doing the things that you could be doing, and even own them, accept them, own them, and perhaps even find deeper connection with your audience because of your imperfections. Going to leave it there for today, but I will be back next week continuing the theme of visual storytelling. So this week we had just had an episode with Emily Schneider where we're talking about PowerPoint. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about your visual representations, things like your headshots and your professional photographs and images with a professional photographer who works with lots of coaches and speakers and communication professionals to help you get the right shots. So we're going to be talking about what photos you need, what photos you don't need, how much maybe you should be thinking about investing into this, how to make those images work for you, where to be putting them, all that good stuff. So please do join us for that episode of Present Influence coming next week. And we'll be back again on Friday with a solo episode, continuing on from some of the things we've talked about today. I hope this has been a little bit of value for you. If it has, do consider leaving the show a 5-star review on the app that you're listening to me on right now. It does help to encourage other people to take a listen on the show, and I am deeply appreciative of every review that I receive. I look forward to connecting with you again, wherever you're going, whatever you're doing. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.